Hello, everybody. I'm a practicing therapist and a doctoral student of psychology. Today, let's talk about how to override and reduce an avoidance fear of commitment. This should be, I worked with a lot of avoidance. I work with a lot of avoidance, and it's always been something that I realize does correlate with their perspective of commitment, autonomy, and their conflict about actually having somebody in their life long term and forever. This fear of commitment, right? Fear of giving up their freedom, fear of being controlled. So let's talk about commitment. Are avoidants actually afraid of commitment? Yes and no, okay? When somebody's afraid of something, it's usually presented in a very rigid way. Not all the time, but sometimes. Let's give an example. If somebody's very afraid of uncertainty, they tend to be very controlling of their schedule, right? This is just an example. It's not the same as being afraid of the house flooding, right? Actually, no, it would be like that. Oh, a lion. Let's say you're afraid of a lion. It's good. That's like feeling like a fear, right? You feel it, you run away or whatever it is, or you make sure that the cage on the zoo is closed, whatever it is, okay? You're afraid of a lion, okay? But if you're afraid of the house flooding or you're afraid of uncertainty or whatever it is, let's say you have a very irrational fear of the house flooding. You're always going to check the taps. You're always going to do this, whatever it is. That sounds a little bit compulsive, but we're just giving examples, right? Fear of uncertainty. You're very controlling of your time, your schedule, whatever it is, okay? A lot of avoidants actually are very afraid of uncertainty. They're actually even deeper underneath that uncertainty is fear of them losing control because they feel like then somebody's going to control them. But anyways, it's maladaptive. It's a maladaptive strategy against the fear. So when they're afraid of something, it presents very rigid, okay? So example, commitment. I don't do commitment. I don't get married. Whatever it is, that's their rigidness because what happens when they get married? Well, they can be taken advantage of. What if they pick the wrong person? That's one of the biggest fears. I don't think you guys realize that. What if it's the wrong time? What if I made a mistake? Then I'm a failure. I picked the wrong person and now I'm a failure. This proves I'm a failure. This proves I'm not good enough. It proves I'm not smart. It proves that I'm defective. I don't know how to pick people. I don't know how. I'm not social. Whatever it is, those are their fears, right? And so it's very maladaptive. And so what ends up happening is we don't tackle that actual fear by putting it right in front of their face, right? Oh, you're afraid of uncertainty? Let me throw you in the most uncertain situation. That's not what you're supposed to do, right? A lot of people think that's what you do if you're like doing exposure therapy. That's not what you do. You do it slowly, but you don't do it like that. So then what do? You first present what the actual fear is underneath the uncertainty or whatever it is, underneath the fear of commitment, okay? And so, yes, avoidants are afraid of commitment, but they're not going to register that as fear. What in actuality, what it is they want to know that they're safe. That's the opposite of that. So you want to provide safety. If somebody is afraid of heights, they're not actually afraid of the height itself, right? They're afraid of what the height means. What if they fall? Are they going to be away from people? Can people help them? What if they are not strong enough to hold on the ledge? What if their shoes slip? What if the fence, they lean over the fence and they flip over? Whatever it is, right? These are the fears. They're not afraid of the actual height itself. They're afraid of what the height means. Same thing with commitment. You're not afraid of the commitment in of itself. You're afraid of what the commitment means, what you can lose, what can happen, okay? So what do? You show them, for example, with heights, that not all heights are the same and not all are as risky as you believe it to be. Not all heights are the same. If you're in a sky-rise apartment, that's a height, but you're in a box that's safe with like elevators, whatever. A lot of people aren't afraid of that. They're just afraid if like there's a railing or something, right? They're not always afraid of going to a high skyrise apartment. That's not usually what triggers the fear. And so if there's safety involved, suddenly that's not scary anymore. So commitment, as long as there's some safety, they just don't want to lose that space, autonomy, perceived identity, humiliation. They don't want to be humiliated, controlled, or manipulated, whatever it is. And so what you do is each of those specific fears, you show them that is unlikely it'll happen in your relationship. And suddenly the fear overrides. So let's actually talk about those specific ideas so that we can help acknowledge this fear, dissipate it, and then you guys can have a committed relationship, okay? And then we're going to summarize it at the end, okay? Excuse me. So the first one is you provide them space built into the lifestyle, such as having separate activities, friends, and allowing time for decompression when needed, okay? The next one is you reassure them of their fears. Don't reassure things that they haven't brought up, or it depends. You know your partner best. You probably know their fears better than I ever could, okay? You might say, I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm just asking, I promise. You might say, even if you do end up rescheduling, I won't get upset. I know your work is unpredictable and I appreciate you always making time to see me. You might say, I'm not going to suddenly ask for marriage just because we moved in together. I hope you can trust me and appreciate the person I am. Those are some examples of some things you can do to reassure their fears. The next one is you want to acknowledge their efforts, okay? I notice that you're making a difference. To be honest, you've changed a lot in a good way, and you're almost like a different person in a good way. And I really like who you are. Of course, I liked who you were before, but who you are now really matches with who I am now. And I think we've grown together. I really notice your efforts, okay? The next one is when addressing commitment, reinforce your trustworthiness. Let's just say, in avoidance, saying, I don't know if we should move in together since I like my space. You might say, I appreciate you sharing and being honest. I do want to let you know, I'll do my best to make sure you get as much space as you need. Again, if you're not ready, we can revisit this topic later, but I want you to know that's not going to be an issue. You're going to have your space. If you live with me, I promise you're going to have your space. And if you don't, you tell me and I'll change it. That's what you got to do. You reinforced it and you said, hey, if you're not ready to have this conversation, we can have it later, okay? And it doesn't mean you never talk about it. Do what you said. You have it later, okay? The next one is when they say, I'm not sure, or maybe, you want to address it directly, okay? I'm going to explain what this means. A lot of avoidants give a non-committal response. It means that it's likely that they're leaning towards yes, but they don't want to disappoint you by saying yes, and then maybe one day something happens and they disappoint you, right? This is the main reason why avoidants give non-committal responses. It's not because they secretly are saying no. That is not why, okay? It's actually because they're secretly saying yes, but they're afraid to disappoint you, and so they need more time. What you do when they give a non-committal response is you address it and you mention that they tend to do that. You might say, I understand you're saying maybe, but next time when we talk about this, I don't want you to say maybe, or I'm not sure, or I don't know. I want you to have a more reasonable explanation. I'm okay with that, but I want you to be more clear. I don't want you to be afraid of something not happening or something happening that might not be rational. Let's give an example, okay? Let's say you said, I want us to move in together in 2 years. And they say, yeah, but what happens if we have a job change and we have to move away and I have to move to California and you have to move to Vermont? How can we live together? What if that happens? Mention, I hear what you're saying, but us moving in together is very realistic, and what you're saying is very hypothetical. I think that it might be better if you would operate less on fear and hear what I'm saying. If you're not ready for this conversation, that's fine. But I don't want you to make barriers about things that's not real. And I notice you do that a lot. I'm just being honest. If you're not sure, that's fine. But I really hope that when you're saying you're not sure or when you're saying maybe, you're actually giving it a real chance instead of using these barriers. You can say it like that. It's okay. You guys are in a relationship. Just be clear about what you see, and you can leave it at that, okay? Let them be more comfortable with you speaking out about your perspective. The next one is speak how you feel without expecting immediate change. You might say, in general, I feel like, I don't know, you don't answer texts as quick as I would like. I wish that you would. We've been together for 3 years, and I feel like you sometimes leave me hanging for like 6 to 7 hours. I would really like if you would answer my texts more quickly. I'm hoping that one day. I'm not expecting it right away, but I would really like to see that. There you go, okay? The next one is be non-judgmental in general. You're seeing, let's say, I don't know, a person that's wearing an outfit that is not based on the weather. I do that all the time, right? I that's the way I dress. I typically dress more summer or spring, even when it's winter. Probably not the healthiest, but that's what I do. But maybe you see somebody who's dressing like me and you might say, oh, I like that dress, whatever it is. And you're non-judgmental rather than saying, oh my gosh, like she must be freezing. It's winter. That might be something that you might be very genuine, like you're not being mean, but avoidance might think, oh, you're being a little judgmental. Another thing might be like the workers, like during Christmas. I'm recording this in November, but during Christmas, a lot of folks, like retail folks, still have to work on certain days, the day before Christmas, things like that, right? And maybe you might say, oh, maybe they want to work. Maybe you said they want to work. A lot of people, maybe they don't want to work. They just don't have a choice because they need that money. Even though you weren't meaning it like that, that can come across judgmental to an avoidant because avoidants are really sensitive to judgment. So those types of things. And if you come across judgmental, tell your partner, hey, I didn't mean to come across that way. I was just expressing myself, right? Something along those lines. The next one is acknowledge mistakes that you've made in the relationship and outwardly express your commitment to change, okay? Hey, I'm sorry I crashed out. I'm working on it. I know that sometimes I can get a little bit over the top with some emotions, but I'm working on it. The next one is you just to be honest, expect a slower than secure timeline. A secure person, you guys could get married in a year, and that could literally be normal. That's not abnormal. You also could get married in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. For a secure timeline, that's still normal. With an avoidant, it might take longer than that. Sometimes it doesn't. I've had some couples that they got married in like 5, 6 years, 4 years. But a lot of times it takes even longer than that. Closer, it's like 11, 10 years marriage, okay? And the last one is you respect your partner. Let's go ahead and summarize, and then we're going to wrap it up, okay? The first one is you provide built-in space. The second one is you reassure their fears. The third one is you acknowledge their efforts. Fourth one is when addressing commitment, you reinforce your trustworthiness. The fifth one is you address directly their non-committal responses to give them more awareness. The next one is you express how you feel without expecting immediate change. The seventh one is being non-judgmental in general. The eighth one is acknowledging your own relationship mistakes that you want to work on and express outward commitment. The ninth one is expecting slower than a secure timeline. And the 10th one is you respect your partner. I hope this video was helpful to somebody. Please like, subscribe. I'll see you in the next one.